so we'll call the Economic Development meeting to order. The Executive Assistant will please call the
Black.
Here.
Here. Here. Heck.
Here.
So.
Here.
Randy. Grandpa.
Here.
One present. We are going to skip ahead right away to new business, to the Strategic and Marketing Plan update with the AE2S. And then we'll go back to this up later. So the floor is your guys'.
Okay, thank you. So we prepared a presentation.
Sure, the mics are all turned on. I'm sorry.
Good? Okay. So we prepared a presentation today that summarizes the survey results. It also gives a little snapshot of where we're at in the whole process, and then also we're just going to touch on the Facebook and show you where we're at currently with the Facebook and social media. So we can jump right into, oh, here's the clicker right here. Okay. So really, you know, this survey is part of the larger marketing plan, and really the goal of this survey was to start to engage the community a little bit more about what's going on with the East Grand Forks EDA. It's really to help inform the overall strategic plan, add color to it. We wanted to understand the perceptions of the community, realizing it's a snapshot of the community, but the perceptions, and it really starts to help inform the branding as we're developing the branding. And then also we understood that housing was really important. You have lots to sell. And so getting that perspective of the community on the housing situation and residential situation was important. So we launched the survey, and it was a digital survey. So it was an online survey. We had about 200 respondents, 201 to be exact. And you can see that from the demographics, we had a good mix of ranges. We probably had less participation from 18 to 25-year-olds and then 66 plus. Overall, when we look at this, we don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. What we're really looking at targeting is new homeowners, people that are looking to expand homes, buy, build, that sort of thing. Business owners looking at entrepreneurs to start businesses, and the majority is in that age range. In terms of female versus male, we had a pretty even split. There was more females. Not surprising, the type of survey it is, in the fact that it was a digital survey that we really focused on promoting through Facebook.
I think you just
Exit.
Just click on the X.
Okay, so you see the age range. So a little bit more about the respondents. We wanted to know how long they've been living in East Grand Forks. This kind of helps inform their perspective. So, further down the line in the survey, we asked, about livability and quality of life and that sort of thing. And this really correlates to how long they've been here, too. You'll see on this side that we asked where they grew up, most in this region, not surprising. And then we also asked if they were employed outside of the home, just trying to find out, are they working in home, outside, where are they working at, that type of information. All demographics that help us form the marketing plan. I'm looking at my binder and looking at this. Okay. Getting into the homeowner information, we wanted to look at, did I skip a part here?
You moved your binder but didn't click.
Oh, I'm looking and I'm not clicking for you guys. Sorry about that. So this is, so we looked at the homeowner rates versus built. We have a high percentage of, I'm going back and forth here, I'm sorry. Sorry, that one. Looked at if you're a homeowner, did you build or purchase your home? I think something of note is that we had 12% of the respondents that built their homes. That's higher than the national average, depending on what source you're looking at. The only group not renting is 66 and above. Again, probably not surprising. Of the homeowners that purchased or built in East Grand Forks, we ask, why did you do this? Right? That's important. It's getting down to why are you here in East Grand Forks? And a big part were, they grew up in or around East Grand Forks. It was familiar to them. There's family. You'll see that the other bar at the bottom is pretty large, and I can tell you from the responses that a lot of them were echoing already the things that were in the other bars. So it's not necessarily that there's different other reasons. It's maybe how they read the question, and so they wrote their response and it came under other. But grew up in Grand Forks, family, most cost effective. I think that's also important to note. I think sometimes there's a perception that it's more expensive or taxes are higher, and it's interesting that people live here because they feel that it's most cost effective. So of the homeowners, we asked them how long they thought they were going to be in their homes. And the ranges, we did 1 to 5, 5 to 10, that sort of thing, so we could understand how long they planned to be here. And then if they responded, we only plan to be in our home 1 to 5 years, we asked why. Most of the responses had to do with the sizing. They either wanted to upsize or they wanted to downsize. And so that was really the majority of the answers of why. And then you get into the lack of amenities and employment opportunity reasons, which were smaller reasons. It was mostly had to do with sizing of the home and finding the right home for their family. So we asked about their perception of housing needs in the city, and overwhelmingly it was that starter home, that pricing from $150 to $250 price point. I think this is one of those situations where perhaps it's just a normal response in this area. I think if you would ask Grand Forks residents, you would probably get the same answer. Starter homes, smaller homes are a big deal right now. People really feel that there's a gap in the market in those type of homes. And then of those respondents that noted that they thought multi-family housing was needed, 41% said townhomes was the highest need.
Were you able to tell of those that said that we needed the lower priced housing, what age those were?
Yes.
Was
yes.
that the young families that we want to get started into the home?
Yes, and that is, it might be in the
It's either in the
back. I don't
PowerPoint
know
or
if we
filtered.
gave you the whole filtered version of this, but yeah, that's one of the things
It's
that we're,
coming up.
that we're doing as part of the marketing plan, is taking all this data and being able to filter it and correlate it to each other. Yeah, that's really important. So after that, we got into the livability type of questions. And so from their vantage point, what is the greatest challenge when moving or building in East Grand Forks? And so this was an open-ended question. We wanted to ask some open-ended questions, so we got some more in-depth answers. And what you see above there is a word cloud based on all the open-ended questions. And so the words that pop up larger and more bold are the ones that reoccurred multiple times. So you can see that people believe property taxes, lack of housing, a lot of income tax, higher, just a higher rate of living when it comes to taxes, bubbled up to the top. Then conversely, we asked, what is the greatest asset to living in East Grand Forks? And you can see that same word cloud. We have a bunch of neat data where people really took the time to fill in what they thought was great about East Grand Forks, and that definitely will inform the branding part of this. I think what's also neat to note about this is just such a positivity around community and schools, and you have this acknowledgement of the small town community feeling, but also the businesses and the restaurants in the downtown. So you have this great small town with this vibrant downtown community. We asked to rate the quality of life areas, and what you can see is that most everybody rated it neutral to good. The schools came up on top, where the medical or essential services were probably the lowest rated, but the difference between the rating is pretty slim. Now, this is one of those questions that we are getting at in terms of the personality of East Grand Forks. How would you describe East Grand Forks to somebody that was moving here, or how do they perceive East Grand Forks living here? Again, this was an open-ended question. Great answers. What I think is neat about this is that there's very negative comments. So this was really an open-ended question. How would you describe the personality of East Grand Forks? It was neither give us the assets, or it was just a very neutral question. And the answers that really pop up most are very positive. You'll see maybe a couple comments of the good old boys here and there, but really what is most commented about is, again, community, friendly, nice, welcoming, those type of words. Little, big town, Minnesota nice. And again, people took time to respond to the questions, so that was really nice, and it's going to be helpful.
Was there any follow-up for that question? Is it a good old boy and then good old boys, so we kind of put them together, it'd be kind of the same thing, but was there any explanation on that one at all? Or?
You know, it was more so, I think the comments were around a good old boys, where there's a select group of people that make decisions. You know, it's a closed group that make decisions, speaking to maybe transparency.
And part of the reason it shows up so big was the person that responded kept using the phrase over and over, so that shows up multiple times.
Right. So so it may be one comment, but they use the same word multiple times in the same comment. So.
And the comments are in the back of the binder too. Yeah,
the entire survey is in the back of the.
Thank you.
Yeah, the word cloud isn't perfect, but it's a quick visual snapshot of the responses.
I thought maybe they thought there was a white collar and a blue collar group of good old boys.
I wonder which one I'd be in.
You're in both, you straddle
You're
the
in
line.
Brown collar.
Brown collar.
So that was a really, kind of high-level, quick overview of the survey results. The full results are in the back of this binder, so you can read every comment and every result from the survey. Probably more importantly is, how are we going to use this data? And I think we touched on it earlier. It's really about taking this all in. How is it going to inform the brand? We're going to correlate and filter out some of the answers. It helps inform the type of recommendations we make. So it might be about how people communicate, how they receive information. And it's taking, okay, this age group feels like this thing is important, so we need to target those items, and this is how we're going to communicate to that specific age group. So it's really about filtering and correlating this data to make informed decisions. And then just an example of this is, again, what we were saying earlier is, how do you break the information out? This is just kind of showing how you might do that. So if you own your home, did you purchase it or build it? We broke it out in the different age groups, and you can see that 36 to 45 age group is more likely to build. And so perhaps the targeting for that age group is slightly different than the targeting for that younger age group. Or what is the deciding factor to do so in East Grand Forks? And this is a little hard to read here, but, close to work is important for the younger group where the amenities are nil on that second group. Maybe you ask, why is that? But there's just some different interesting things that come out when you start to break it out through age group. And again, what type of housing is needed, this speaks to that. And I think the other thing that came out of this is, like I said, you get those little tidbits from those open-ended questions. You really get what's on people's mind. You get their true feelings or their personality of the city. One tidbit that came out was somebody that said the best regional incentives for veterans is here in East Grand Forks. We're not far from an Air Force base, so what does that mean? There's probably specific targeting that needs to happen for veterans. A dislike or aversion to living in North Dakota. Minnesota forever. I grew up in North Dakota. I'm used to people saying, why do you live there, right? But what comes out of this is there's great pride in Minnesota. And we talked about this really early on in the process, is embrace the fact that you're in Minnesota. And most people outside this region, if given the choice, would probably choose Minnesota over North Dakota. If you're living in Wisconsin, or you're living in Minneapolis, or you're trying to draw people from other regions, they're probably most likely to stay in Minnesota, or there's just an overall perception nationwide that Minnesota is probably a better quality of life. Well, where did it go? Oh, and this is really speaking to, this was the last question in the survey, because we were really curious about how they got their information about East Grand Forks living or events. As we developed our messaging and we're deciding which channel to go through with which message, it was really important to see, well, where do they get their information? And overall, social media. Social media is where people get their information. And it's true of multiple age groups. It varies a little by different age groups, and we did that on this next slide. You can see the different age groups and how they answered those questions. But regardless of the age group, social media does come out on top. And so it's really important to utilize that channel and that media. You want to?
Yeah. And so, again, kind of the survey was a big part in helping us take the next steps in creating a brand. And it has to be a brand that is authentic to East Grand Forks, which is why we needed their voices to come through. And it's how they would describe East Grand Forks, not just our creative ideas. There's support behind it. And so how we do this is we look at the survey results and all the comments and all the information and what we know about branding. And it usually kind of goes into 3 different areas. So geographic or place, where you're at, and then the people and the personality of the region, and as well as just the life and living in East Grand Forks. And so we kind of started and worked with a color palette just for social media and other things we needed to get started. And
yeah, and I guess to that point, we felt the need that we had to start a Facebook page for East Grand Forks CDA, because that was one of the ways we were going to get the survey out to people, and so it was important to start it immediately. And then as we started it, we realized that we probably needed to have a consistent palette and those type of things. So some of the branding things maybe jumped ahead of what we had originally intended.
So we started that page and created a consistent theme. We had some pictures ourselves, and then we asked community members if we could use their pictures just by going onto their social media. And we created a color palette that is consistent with the current East Grand Forks city brand, but is also unique enough to the EDA. So we looked at pictures that are in and around this area. So this would be down on the Greenway, probably really close to this time of the year. And then the next one is maybe fall or spring, but kind of in a more rural area, and we pulled colors from these pictures. This is during the winter time, so kind of getting all the different seasons. And then the one that rose to the top was a picture at the high school football, soccer field. And so all of these pictures can be found naturally within the community, but also tie in really well to create a consistent brand. And so this far we have done, you remember, we'll show you at the end too, we've reviewed a lot of the materials. So the SWOT analysis that you have already provided and the strategic plan and some of the current communications have all been analyzed. We looked at the survey and the survey results. We have met a few times and started brainstorming some branding ideas that will come together based off of all of these things. We started the Facebook page, and we'll show you some analytics from that page. So these are your net followers. Currently there are 40 followers, and this is something that you'll always continuously need to be working on. 40 is, you can see the darker colors, it's hard to see on the screen, but the darker colors are from boosts, and a boost is paying for a targeted message to show up on people's screens that don't already follow you, and then they can choose to follow you based off of good content or whatever it may be. And a boost can cost very minimal amounts of money and really get to that targeted messages. So that's something that we need to be consistently doing to get that number higher than 40 and keep making sure that there's great engagement on this page.
And you can see on this, if you are wondering where those spikes are, those were boosting the survey posts. So we wanted to reach more people about the survey that was happening for East Grand Forks. And then you can see that darker area is the followers that you gained from those boosts. And when we talk about minimal costs for boosts, we're talking $10 to $20.
And so, like she said before, here's the reach of those boosts. You can see the survey posts reached just over 500 people at the most. And it was for 10, I don't know if we even did $20 because we were doing it for just 3 to 4 days.
I think it was 10.
So really it's a great way to get the message to people in the area that are in that age range that you want to see. And then when you look at what are people doing when they look at your posts, you get a lot of reactions, which is great. That is what you want. And there's actually that top one with the picture of City Hall is actually a lot of shares. And that's also really great because when you share a message on your page, it shares it to your friends as well. And another thing that's new with the new Facebook algorithm, if any of you have been following along with that, is that comments are seen as like authentic and true engagement, and that's what Facebook is trying to provide instead of a bunch of fake news and whatever else. And so encouraging comments is something that we're going to do moving forward to try get the post higher up on people's news feeds. And when you look at who's liking and who's reached by these posts, it is mainly women. And this is something that you tend to see a lot of on Facebook, that it's almost always higher women than men, depending on what you're looking at. And where our age ranges are as well, not a lot of younger generations are going to be using this on Facebook, and nor would your message matter to them. And you can also see where the people are, and mainly Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, but then you can kind of see there's like a Scottsdale, Arizona, 2 people were reached, and this could be people that may have lived here before or just moved. You never know. Yeah, but it was good to see that.
Some of it's my family.
Could be your family. You might know, yeah. But it was all right around this region, which is exactly what we want to see. And then we also wanted to show you some of the top posts. The first post on the left is from the home show, and Forks Builders, we tag them in the post, which is something is kind of seen as best practice, and they reshared and liked the post, so it was able to be seen by their audience as well, which was why it got better engagement than some of the other posts. And then the other two were with a survey and were both boosted posts. The top one was a video and had a lot of views, and that's just from people scrolling on their phones and seeing that. And video is something that's really engaging and will catch a user's eye a lot more. So those were the top posts that have been on the page so far. And moving forward, we have posts scheduled. We use CoSchedule to schedule our posts at the best time of the day, and we have 3 posts a week, and those have incentives that the EDA offers, different events, like we talked about the State of the City. We want to feature local businesses and tag them as well and show the community what's been done and maybe inspire other businesses to see that they can do similar things. We're sharing some of the more general survey results just because those are probably interesting to others to see as well. And then the last thing we want to do is it's very important to humanize the brand and show who's supporting it, who's behind it. And to do that, we wanted to feature you guys and board members. And I had emailed a few of you, and it's just something that we need your feedback from is a picture, and it can be something simple like, I've been on the board for X number of years, or something fun or funny about yourself. And it's what people like to see. If you think about what you like to see on Facebook, you like to see your friends on there, you want to see their face. And so that's kind of our next step moving forward, is making sure we get that information from you and sharing it and humanizing the brand.
And so this is just an overall outline of the whole plan, and we just wanted to share where we're at. So we're really wrapping up that first column there where we're on number 5 on the brand, and really pulling all this information together to create the brand. And then we hope to do that by the end of May, and then June really tackle that second column. And the second column is really integrated all together, the messaging, the scheduling, what channel you're going to be doing. So that'll come together really quickly. Really, the first column is what probably takes the most amount of time because you're gathering data and analyzing the data. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of brand. And then what we'll be doing is putting together 2 or 3 brand options for you to review for discussion among this group, and then we'll go forth on what brand you choose.
What stands out when you're doing branding with an organization? What are the things that you would say the organization should know about branding itself?
Well, I think that, a lot of it will be up to us in terms of how we present it to you. I think it's important not to present too many options. Like we had earlier, we like to really categorize the brand and how we're approaching it. So, people, place, personality, that type of thing. Giving you 2 to 3 and why. I think having the reason behind the why is really important, and that's going to be up to us to explain that to you and have that option for you to discuss. That's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Everybody should read the back items on here because it's quite revealing.
Well,
I would agree.
Yeah, there's one comment that I think stands out as where we need to do our most work.
Right.
And that is
And we've been talking
being more welcoming to outsiders.
Yeah.
I got a question for you regarding the negative comments that are in the back of this thing, which are, I think you're referring to. Can you tell if it's primarily the 1 or 2 people that are throwing them in there every question? Or is it like a general consensus on some of these? Because it almost seems like it could be one person or 2 people that have that.
I haven't personally pulled that data, but we certainly can do it by respondent, so you
I think that is
can
important.
see.
If it is just 1 or 2 people, you don't want to.
If 1 or 2 people are just being negative and going through, I mean, I think it's appealing and it's good information, but it's also could be skewed based upon the fact that it's coming up under 1 or 2 people and they're saying it at every question.
Yes,
And
of
you're
course,
also going to get some people that have that view that because they have that view, they won't respond to this survey at all. And I mean, that's the other part with this too is, I mean, if they feel like it's not welcoming, then what's the point of doing this survey? Just because I know that comment in there, I've heard it from many,
Oh, and I'm
people
not
around
saying,
here,
well,
so.
they're
Yeah.
not right.
From personal experience, it's real.
Right.
Because some of this stuff, a lot of the, there's some of the stuff that the city has been preaching to itself and kind of putting that information out, and at different blurbs, and I think sometimes people hear that and just grasp onto it.
Transparency is the word, and I'm seeing that, and we're working on that all the time.
And this survey is a great, opportunity to show that transparency. We asked people to engage, to take it. They took the time to take the survey. Now it's really up to us to share the results with them. So posting some of those results on Facebook. Yes, you answered it. Here's what we've learned. Here's what we're doing moving forward.
We could do more surveys in the future, correct?
Yeah. And all this data is yours. We'll dump it down. You could probably sift through this data and find 10 more things you wanted to address. It's yours. And
You have 2 more binders.
I'm sorry, what?
You have 2 more binders.
There's 4 more.
Yep.
I want to make sure David got one, for example, and myself.
Yeah, you can have them.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think if we could maybe make black and white copies for the council.
Well, what I talked to Andrea about is having a quicker version at next week's council work session.
Okay.
And that way we can bring in a version that will be handed out to the council itself. Because I think it's essential, because we've also talked about how a web page has to look and how inviting a web page has to be as well. And there are some things, and part of what the discussion is going to have to get to is how often are we allowed to renew Civic Plus? At what point does Civic Plus get renewed or get rejuvenated? And can we take advantage of that as an opportunity to make our web page more inviting and more useful for people as well? We saw one example of a web page that's on a Civic Plus platform that is really easy to use and very inviting for that community.
Page is a work in progress continually.
It's always a work in progress, and it's right.
Trust me, I'm going through it right
But
now.
this way we can have some things that we can actually talk about where we're headed and what we're doing too. And how it becomes user-friendly using the platform that we already have in place that we're already paying for. No additional costs. Additional cost is a big deal. Okay? I bet you want your thumb drive back.
Yep, I saw there's another presentation on it, so yes, I do.
Does anybody else have any other questions for him? Okay, no, thank you very much, very well done.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, we're gonna go back to the beginning and go to approval of minutes for our April 17th regular meeting.
A second.
I move approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then approval of minutes for April 17th closed session for director evaluation.
So move.
Second.
Second by Tim. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And our May 3rd closed session for land sales. Moved by Tim, second by Daniel. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Bills and communications. Carla is not here, so if anybody has any questions on the accounts payable for May 1st. If no questions on the accounts for May 1st, we can move on to accounts payable for May 15th that we do need approval for.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Reports, delinquency update.
There are no delinquencies.
Okay. Moving on to unfinished business, director's report. First is lot sales and development proposal.
On tonight's agenda for the City Council is the approval of the Skeving Properties proposal. Mr. Skeving accepted, it's around and back. Mr. Skeving accepted the revised proposal as you had recommended last week, and the City Council concurred with the recommendations, and he accepted it in total. So that's what's moving forward. Okay. Second thing is, we sold a lot last Friday in Cooley View. Thank you. Cooley View. That pushes us, including the 6 lots for Skeving, that's 11 new sales this year and 1 sale where the time period was extended, which means there are 12 lots that are in process for constructing new homes. City lots only. Doesn't include anything that's happening with the other developments in town.
Then on to the Highway 2 meeting hosted by Mayo Manufacturing on May 24th.
Let me know. I need to know the next day or so. If you wish, if you're hopeful, if you can attend that meeting. Highway 2 West Manufacturers Association holds meetings anywhere basically from Grand Forks to Bemidji, and then they go from roughly Route 2 or a little bit south of Route 2 all the way up to the state line, to the Canadian border. And the one next week is held, being hosted by Mayo Manufacturing, that whom we just gave a loan to for their expansion. So if you let me know in the next couple of days, if you don't let me know by Thursday, I will just presume that you're not able to attend.
Northwest Regional Housing Forum.
On May 3rd, the Governor's Task Force on Housing held a meeting over at University of Minnesota Crookston on a housing forum. If I remember correctly, I attached some materials in here about the forum itself. There's the agenda, the Governor's Task Force on Housing, and then what they have on here are some of the things that they're finding so far, and we talked, in my group, we talked a lot about not necessarily local constraints or local rules that are imposing upon housing. There are a lot of state rules that have to be addressed as well.
Okay, moving on then to Cultural Center.
There was a meeting while I was gone. There have been 2 groups working on a cultural center. One involves the bowling alley. The other is another group that has been working through the high school. Basically, there's an employee at the high school who was working on this, and the 2 groups are meeting and working on trying to create a cultural center that will help with cultural awareness both ways in the community, and will be expanded, not just Somali culture, but cultures from all groups from everywhere. The next meeting is Thursday.
And moving on to conference.
I attended the conference, and this, briefly, my sessions included economic development, branding and marketing, redevelopment of obsolete and/or abandoned properties, and diversity awareness. That's where I focused. All things that will benefit us as we go forward.
And number 6, our USDA research and development training.
Because we're becoming eligible on June 4th for the residential programs from USDA RD, the RD asked if we could host a session regarding training the realtors on the program. That was held in this room and was successful. There were about a dozen realtors who participated in that meeting, and they are looking to see when they can arrange a different meeting for the bankers as well, the lenders, who would be involved in the program. They were, one, very impressed with the facility, and two, very impressed with the people who made sure that they had what they needed down here. For example, Corey and Nancy, who made sure they had everything they needed.
Moving on to Springstead.
We use Springstead as a consultant for several different things, including things that we do when we're hiring people and for things in economic development. The person who at Springstead who's been there for several years is moving into a different capacity. So I met with a new representative from Springstead who's very highly experienced and had a good meeting about different things that we're doing here and how we can, how we might be able to use their services in the future, and when we will and we won't use their services type thing.
Our Minnesota Marketing Partnership.
Minnesota Marketing Partnership, you remember we chose a couple of years ago to pay the dues for this as opposed to some other things. They hold meetings 3 times a year, and I included in your packet information from the partnership, and there are places to go to, a couple of websites to go to if you're looking for additional information. One is, we talk about marketing on a general. The state does not provide much funding to DEED for marketing, so the communities get together to supplement and augment that funding that the state provides so we can extend our reach and reach out to more people nationally and internationally. We did our marketing review. We heard a presentation on new skills training. We talked about the trade shows and events calendar. We talked about a FAM tour. What I talked with them, because I have a background in Chicago, is I may know some of the people. They were looking for people who have a Chicago background to possibly participate with that. What I talked with some of my colleagues in this area is about possibly representing Northwest Minnesota generally, so that we can possibly share the costs with different communities when we do that, if we can do that. But that's something that to be developed as we move further along. They won't know, in fact, the partnership won't know for a few weeks where we're proceeding on this, but I did talk with them directly on that. In addition, one of the things that's in your packet is the Minnesota Advantage PowerPoint. And at the bottom of this page is a link. If you put that link, or if you ask me for it, I'll get you the link. That you can go into there and you can look at a full PowerPoint on the points that are being addressed as the advantages to locate in Minnesota and to do business in Minnesota. It's about, I want to say about 30 or 35 slides. Okay.
And lastly, on our director's report, the BCEZ visit.
Border Cities Enterprise Zone is run through the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development. There will be 2 representatives from DEED here this afternoon. They're actually going to go on a tour of one of our businesses that's benefited by use of the Enterprise Zone tax credits. They will go by the other business, and I will talk with them about the businesses and about our uses of the program. That's occurring this afternoon.
Moving on to new business, we've already done the marketing plan, so moving on to Gulstead, Jensen, and McCann lease renewal.
The Gulstead lease, for shortened version, the Gulstead lease expires in a few months, so I'm bringing it to you with a proposal on new lease rates. What I have found is that lease rates generally downtown are $10 per square foot, and this will change the lease rate over time to bring it up to the $10 per square foot basis. If this is acceptable, could you get a motion so I can inform Mr. Gulstead that this is our himself in these rates?
Why doesn't he want to buy the place? I'm just kidding.
You're kidding, right?
No, it's for sale.
A little.
I did try to buy it originally, and then make a long story short, Mr. Richter gave Mike's Pizza the same option to buy it as I had, and messed it all up, and then after that I said I'm done. you know, and then over time, it's just not economically viable for myself. Why don't you make an offer where it's economically viable? At this point in my age, I'm not buying a building.
He's already a landlord.
Myself. I did that with myself 5 years ago, so it isn't worth it.
Anyhow, if this is acceptable, would you tell me to proceed or not proceed? Or if you want something different?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
If that helps you.
All right, then, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I think you should share some of those answers to those survey with the school. School?
Yeah.
I mean, they're a big part of the